Welcome to the podcast. If you'd like to listen to an ad-free version of this episode and all of our episodes, then search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. That's our premium channel where all of our ad-free and advanced episodes live, all in one place. True Crime Today Premium Plus. Search it on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. Even try it for 3 days free.
You're about to take a deep dive into one of the biggest true crime cases in the universe. Or, at least, on our part of the planet. From the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today.
It was a quiet September afternoon in Whitesburg, Kentucky. The kind of afternoon when life moves at its own steady pace and everyone knows everyone. At least that's how it's always been. But that day, September 19th, 2024, something happened that no one in the small town could have imagined. Inside the Letcher County Courthouse, a scene was unfolding that would shake this tight-knit community to its core. In his chambers, Judge Kevin Mullins lied dying, shot 8 times by a man he had called a friend for years. The local sheriff, Shawn Mickey Stines. How could something like this happen between two men who were so close, so intertwined in both their personal and professional lives? That's a question everyone has been asking since that fateful day. Stines, the man elected to uphold the law, was now at the center of a murder investigation. And the more that came out, the more it became clear that this was no ordinary case of violence. The sheriff had pled not guilty. But the question remains, what drove him to walk into the judge's office, pull out a gun, and shoot his friend dead? What was it that boiled over that afternoon, leading to such a tragic conclusion? The story begins, as many do, with friendship. Stines, 43, Mullins, 54, had known each other for years. Both were respected figures in Whitesburg, a town where everyone knows everyone. Stines had been the county sheriff since 2018, having previously served as Mullins' bailiff. Mullins, for his part, had served the judge in the state's 47th district since 2009, appointed by former Governor Steve Beshear. Together, they represented law and order in the community, sharing lunches at a local sports bar and working together side by side in the courthouse. In fact, just hours before the shooting, Stines and Mullin had been seen together at Streetside Grill and Bar on Main Street. It wasn't an unusual sight. This was a spot they frequented together, often ordering the same meal. That day, as usual, they shared wings and salad, sitting at an outdoor table just a few hundred yards from the courthouse, where their worlds would collide later that afternoon. There was nothing, according to witnesses, that indicated any trouble brewing between the two. By all accounts, it was just another lunch between friends. But behind the scenes, something was shifting. The calm exterior hid a tension that would soon explode in violence. According to investigators, it was something Stines discovered on Mullins' phone that set off a deadly chain of events. What Stines allegedly found was his daughter's phone number, something that raised immediate alarm. The discovery, it seems, was enough to drive the sheriff into a state of extreme emotional disturbance. It's unclear what exactly Stines feared, but the mere presence of that number on Mullins' phone, some allege, pushed him to the edge. What we know next comes from security footage and witness testimony. After leaving the restaurant, Stines returned to the courthouse and made his way to Mullins' chambers. He was seen checking his phone and then making a call from Mullins' own phone, possibly trying to contact his daughter. As he entered the judge's chambers, he told the courthouse staff that he needed to speak to Mullins alone. There were no signs of alarm, nothing to suggest that the sheriff was about to pull out his gun. Once the door to Mullins' inner office was closed, everything changed. Video from the inside of the office captures the horrifying scene. Mullins standing behind his desk with his hands raised, clearly terrified, while Stines, his gun drawn, pointed it directly at him. Mullins, according to the footage, was cowering, trying to protect himself as the sheriff then fired 8 bullets into his body. 8 shots. By the time Stines was finished, the judge lay dead behind his desk, his life taken by a man who had once been a close friend. And then, just as calmly as he had entered the chamber, Stines walked out, hands raised. He surrendered to officers who had rushed to the scene after hearing the gunshots. There was no struggle, no attempt to flee. He was handcuffed and led away, charged with first-degree murder. The question was, why? Why would Stines, a man elected to protect and serve, gun down a friend in such a brutal and public manner? His defense attorneys argue that the answer lies not in premeditation, but in passion. They claim that Stines was acting, quote, in the heat of passion, unquote, and that his actions were the result of extreme emotional disturbance. They don't deny that he pulled the trigger, but they argue that the killing wasn't planned, that it was a moment of overwhelming emotion triggered by whatever it was that Stines discovered on Mullins' phone. In court, Stines' attorney, Jeremy Barthley, made the case that his client shouldn't be facing first-degree murder charges. Instead, he argued that Stines' actions should be considered manslaughter based on the defense of extreme emotional disturbance. It was not something that was planned and occurred in the heat of passion, Barthley told the court. He insisted that there had to be a compelling reason for Stines to feel like he had to take such drastic action, though exactly what that reason was remains unclear. Investigators are still piecing together the full story. One possible motive that's being explored is the idea of a sex scandal. Was there something more to Mullins' relationship with Stines' daughter? Was there something inappropriate that Stines believed had happened between the judge and his child? So far, there's been no confirmation of such a connection, but the presence of her number on Mullins' phone has fueled speculation. It's a question that remains unanswered, but one that could hold the key to understanding why Stines acted the way he did. And then there's the strange statement Stines allegedly made when he was taken into custody. According to one of the officers at the scene, Stines mumbled something about people trying to kidnap his wife and kid. Was this just the ramblings of a man in shock, or did it point to something deeper, some hidden fear or conspiracy that only Stines knew about? No one is sure, but the defense may use this statement to argue that Stines was not in his right mind at the time of the shooting. Complicating matters further is the backdrop of another scandal that's been brewing in the sheriff's office. Stines had recently been dealing with a civil lawsuit involving one of his deputies, Ben Fields, who had been convicted of coercing a woman on home incarceration into sex in exchange for favors. And where had this crime taken place? In Judge Mills' chambers. Now, there's no direct link between Fields' actions and the events of September 19th. The history of the case adds another layer of tension to the relationship between Stines and Mullins. Was Stines feeling the pressure of that lawsuit? Did he blame Mullins for the scandal? Or was it simply another piece of the puzzle that led to that fateful moment in the courthouse? The people of Whitesburg are still trying to process it all. In a town where everyone knows everyone, the death of Judge Kevin Mullins at the hands of Sheriff Shawn Stines has left a deep scar. Both men were well known, well respected, and now one is dead. The other faces the possibility of spending the rest of his life behind bars. Stines has since resigned as sheriff, a role he was elected to in 2018 and again in 2022. But even though he's no longer wearing the badge, the town is left grappling with the aftermath of his actions. For now, Stines remains in jail awaiting trial. His plea of not guilty stands, and his defense team continues to push for the lesser charge of manslaughter. Whether or not the court will accept the argument of extreme emotional disturbance is yet to be seen, but one thing is clear. The story of Shawn Stines and Kevin Mullins is far from over. As investigators continue to dig into the possible motives behind the killing, the town of Whitesburg is left to mourn the loss of a respected judge and grapple with the betrayal of a trusted sheriff. And so, as the legal battle unfolds, we're left with more questions than answers. What was it that pushed Shawn Stines over the edge? Was it simply a moment of passion, of fear and anger colliding in the worst possible way, or is there more to this story? hidden behind the walls of that courthouse office, waiting to be uncovered. For now, we all watch and wait and listen as the case moves forward.
In a world where the darkest secrets lie just beneath the surface,
They said it was an accident, but the evidence says otherwise.
where hidden killers roam unnoticed in the shadows.
I think you would definitely be looking at a blend of toxic, very bad narcissistic personality traits, and they will be vengeful and possibly resort to violence.
Join Tony Bruschi as he uncovers the truth behind the most chilling cases.
They said it was an accident, but the evidence clearly says otherwise.
Each episode, we dig deep into the minds of those who commit the unthinkable.
To your point on narcissism, he thinks in his own mind how witty he is.
Yeah.
But he lost that jury. I was done with him in 2 minutes.
From unsolved mysteries to infamous crimes.
Geez, you've just talked about how you've taught yourself how to do everything under the sun. I bet you did a YouTube video, how to best kill somebody with a knife.
Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi takes you where few dare to go.
How does someone with such a dark secret go unnoticed for so long?
With multiple new episodes every single day.
We're not just telling stories, we're seeking justice.
Listen now on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi.